Hello, my name is Kiva, and I will be presenting to you my findings on exploring the impact of teachers' well being on the classroom. So, throughout this presentation, I will begin with an introduction and then go into why I chose this topic based on overview of my previous works, knowledge, and personal connections. I will then go into my research paper a little bit, an introduction summary of the research paper with important points and the resources that I will be using. And then to conclude, I will talk about moving forward. So, to begin, we keep talking and learning about mental health within education and how to support our students. But what about us as educators? What about our mental health? What about our well being? Sidney Hook, an American philosopher known for his contributions to the philosophy of education, quotes, "Everyone who remembers his own education remembers teachers, not methods and techniques. The teacher is the heart of the educational system." I believe that this quote is directly related to links between curriculum and what is expected of teachers and the overall well being of teachers. For a teacher to have the best positive impact on their students, the teachers themselves need to be their best selves. Like the quote said, the teacher is the heart of the education system, and they are without a doubt the heart of each and every classroom. However, there are such high expectations of teachers nowadays, and the work is never done, leaving teachers feeling drained, burnt out, and sometimes, in cases, even useless. All of these feelings, whether we as educators mean to or not, extend to all aspects of the learning experience and impact the classroom environment, student engagement, and the overall effectiveness of our teaching and our students' learning. So, how did I come to this topic, you may ask? Well, through previous knowledge and works such as our class discussions within this course and many others, my concept map, which was an assignment in this class, and of course, my own past experiences. So, throughout this course, we have had many discussions, some of which have sparked this interest in finding out more about teacher burnout and how it affects students within the classroom. Because I'm finding more and more teachers are having burnout and it negatively impacts on the classroom. Why is this happening? How can we fix it? How can we prevent it? From class discussions, I feel like I've come to the conclusion that it starts here at university with pre service teachers. Before even starting a teaching career, pre service teachers are already exhausted and burnt out from having to make up for limited practical experience, the lack of mentorship, lack of learning about classroom management, lack of knowledge on diverse student needs, limited exposure to real world situations, the gap between theory and practice, and so much more. But the main point being, we aren't given insufficient emphasis on well being, and it is leading us to be unprepared to manage high levels of stress and unable to avoid burnout. Now, I could go down a long rabbit hole talking about all the things that we as pre service teachers need and are not receiving, but I will leave it at the fact that we do not receive enough time in the classroom or enough practical knowledge to begin teaching. Now, when completing my concept map about mental health in education, most of my thoughts, readings, and research were focused on the students' well being and supporting students within the classroom, but nothing really about teachers and teachers' well beings and supporting our teachers. This support imbalance between students and teachers often comes from the expectations we have on teachers. To society, students are viewed as learners and in need of guidance, while teachers are expected to provide that guidance without needing support themselves. We need to recognize this support imbalance to take the next steps in creating a healthier environment within the educational systems. Now, to talk about my personal connections to the topic. First off, social media. Social media nowadays has become such a big part of our lives with technology taking over. but I want to talk about specifically platforms like TikTok, which has become one of the most popular forms of social media nowadays. Social media can be like a double headed sword for us student teachers. On one hand, it can be a platform to share resources, but on the other, it can contribute to burnout, creating unrealistic expectations, promoting comparisons, and so much more. Now, the constant exposure to social media, whether that be curated success stories or stories of burnout, can create stress and take us away from our own personal growth and learning during our own teaching journeys. From my own experience on social media, I have come across way too many videos to count that were about how exhausted teachers are and how exhausting teaching has become, and how some teachers aren't even able to pay for groceries with their salary. Yet, I know teaching is one of the most demanding jobs one can have, yet we aren't able to live on a salary? I don't understand. That also leads to questioning, why am I in this field if I'm just going to be exhausted and burn out for the rest of my life? Now, I won't go down a rabbit hole again too deep, but let's just say the negativity from social media can snowball very, very fast, especially when it comes to teaching. Now, diving into my research, the overall well being of educators is a very fundamental aspect of our educational systems, yet it is so often overlooked. Why is this? Throughout this research paper, I will explore the multifaceted effects of teaching well being on both educators and students. Now, recognizing and addressing the well being of educators is so important for creating a positive and effective learning environment. By investing in support systems for educators, educational systems not only benefit from educators' fulfillment, but also from the development and success of the students in the classroom. In this modern and ever evolving world that we live in, education keeps and continues to change, leaving educators to be continuous learners of all the complexities that education is. But making sure that educator well being is a priority will help create continual successful educational communities. Throughout my research paper, I want to make sure I touch on a few key important facts, some factors that are impacted by teachers' well beings. The first one being a teacher student relationship. Well supported and emotionally stable teachers are better equipped to build meaningful connections with their students. This connection between the teacher and the student can help build a collaborative learning environment. The other factor being effectiveness in the classroom. Now, educators facing burnout may struggle to deliver engaging lessons, impacting the overall quality of the education the students are receiving. When educators are emotionally resilient, they can adapt to the diverse needs, employ innovating teaching methods, and create a dynamic learning environment. Now, going into the resources that I will be using throughout my research paper, the first one being Social Psychology of Education. Social Psychology of Education draws from the disciplines of psychology, sociology, and education in order to help us better understand human behavior in education. One of the chapters is called Teacher Exhaustion: The Effects of Disruptive Student Behaviors, Victimization by the Workplace Bullying, and Social Support from Colleagues. It talks about how exhaustion is a key factor in burnout and is one of the most common risks that compromises teachers' well-being and contributes to a shortage of teachers. It showcases a study that investigated whether experiencing disruptive student behaviors, victimization by workplace bullying, and a lack of social support from colleagues contributes to teacher exhaustion. In conclusion, it tells us that if we want to support teachers in their highly stressful jobs, we need to primarily address the issue of disruptive behaviors of students and thus far largely overlooked problem of bullying among school professionals. The other chapter, called School Principles, social support and teachers' basic needs satisfaction, the mediating role of job demands and job resources. Now, this reading concludes that receiving social support from the school principal is an important factor that significantly contributes to the satisfaction of teachers' basic needs satisfaction. School principals can support teachers in 3 ways. 1. By organizing, regulating, and allocating work tasks, responsibilities, and competencies. The second one being by supporting teachers in coping with job demands and encouraging them to perceive work more positively. And the last one being by showing exemplary behavior that creates a supportive atmosphere. Doing so, school principals can reduce job demands and promote job resources, which creates opportunities for teachers' basic psychological needs to be satisfied. The second resource I will be using is an article titled How to Support Teachers' Educational Needs Right Now. And it talks about how we can support teachers' emotional needs and how schools can develop a plan to help teachers who are feeling anxious and overwhelmed. There is so much great information that I need to take a deeper look at, but there were a couple of things that really stuck out to me. In one study, 85% of teachers reported that work-life imbalance was affecting their ability to teach. Other research had shown that at least 30% of teachers leave the profession within their first 5 years of teaching. Now that's a very high percentage. These studies also found that the general cause of teacher stress and burnout are related to a lack of strong leadership and a negative environment, as well as increased job demands, especially around testing, addressing challenging student behaviors, a lack of autonomy and decision-making power, and a limited to no training in social and emotional learning to support educators' and students' emotional needs. It also talks about 2 possible protective factors for teachers' emotional well-being. One being, teachers with more developed emotional skills tend to report less burnout and greater job satisfaction. And the other being, teachers who work in a school with an administrator with more developed emotional skills tend to experience fewer negative emotions and more positive emotions. And these teachers are likely to have better quality relationships with their students. The third resource I'll be using is a news report. And now this news report is titled, More Than Half of Teachers Do Not Feel Supported, and 1 in 4 has considered quitting as a result. Wow. Now this report, it talks about how a challenging work environment contributes to teacher shortage. One point that stuck out to me was that a very hefty share of teachers, over 1 in 4, plan to or may quit teaching if, for example, a specific life event occurs or maybe a more desirable job appears. This share increased from 24% to 27.4% in just the past 4 years. This is the 4th report in a series on the national teacher shortage, some of which talk about how teachers are severely underpaid. The 4th resource is a research report. This research report, titled Teacher Well-Being, a systematic review of the research literature from the year 2000 to 2019, examined research on teacher well-being from 2000 to 2019. It systematically analyzed various studies to understand the factors influencing teachers' overall well-being. The findings highlighted the complex interplay of personal, professional, and organizational factors impacting teachers' mental health. The review emphasizes the need for a holistic approach to support teacher well-being, considering not only individual factors, but also the broader educational environment. The influencing factors included workload, organizational culture, leadership, work-life balance, professional development, student relationships, and more. In conclusion to the research, We need to address these factors to create a more positive and supportive emotional educational environment for teachers. Now, the fifth resource I'll be using is an interview from EdTech. And Anna Murphy, founder of the EdTech Incubator, which helps people make education their competitive advantage, says, I think there's a general lack of respect towards teachers. I think that teachers are realizing that they can go elsewhere, be paid their actual worth, be treated like an adult, and be able to provide for their families better, be able to provide for themselves, and also be able to grow. She also made it a point of the fact that the pandemic opened teachers' eyes to what else is out there in the education community outside their classroom. Other resources have also made it clear that ever since the pandemic, teachers have become overwhelmed with way more expectations and that more students are seeming to present disruptive behaviors within the classroom. Now, moving forward. So, where do we go from here? This lack of sufficient support for educators is a critical issue that demands our attention now. So, how do we fix this? Well, firstly, we can recognize and prioritize teachers' well being. We can do this through things like promoting work life balance, stress management, and providing mental health support. We can also look into revising university education programs so that they may provide more practical experiences. And other things can include things like mentorship programs and advocating for policy changes. Now, I know I cannot make these changes on my own, but I hope through further research I can learn how to create an environment where both I and my students can thrive within the classroom. Thank you for listening.